Are you 100% permanent and total and you're thinking about filing a new claim, but you're worried about if the VA will go back and look at all of your previous service connected conditions? Stick around and I'll tell you what can be done. Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Dwayne Kimball, owner and founder of KMD89 VA Claims Consulting, United States Army veteran, and retired VA rating specialist. Okay, so today's video, if you are a veteran and you're 100% permanent and total, but you're thinking about filing a new claim, but you're worried, will that rater go back and look at everything? Today, I am going to explain. And trust me, you might be surprised. So, as I stated earlier, I'm a previous VA rater. I retired from the VA and I adjudicated hundreds of claims. Now, there were instances where I received a veteran's claim, came across my desk. They were 100% permanent and total, and they filed a new claim. Did I go back and look at everything? Will the VA go back and look at everything? The answer is probably not. Okay. But two key words, probably and not. I cannot recount on one hand how many times I went back and looked at every single service connected condition when the veteran came in and filed a claim when they were 100% permanent and total. There's nothing in the 38 CFR, the M21, not even a court case that requires the adjudicator to go back and look at everything. Now, I would say 95% of the time, probably not. Now, as I stated earlier, there is a but. Before I get into the but, that is a lot of information. If a rater did that, that is a lot of information to review. Okay. And there's none saying that they have to. Now, for those of you who's probably new to my channel, this is my VA claims folder. Okay. It's two volumes. All right. You can see that. Now you look at that and you might say, man, that's a lot of paperwork. You show this video to a current RVSR or a VSR that's maybe been doing this over 10 or 15 years. When I first started as a rating specialist, that's what the claims looked like because they were paper. 2 volumes is not a lot. I've seen those volumes be up to anywhere from 5 up to 15 or 16 volumes. Okay. That's a lot of information to go through. Now, the but, again, it's highly unlikely they'll go back and look at everything. But there is a strong but. Okay. And I'm about to give you an example where they could go back and look at something. Okay. So pay close attention as I go through this example. Let's say you have a veteran. Obviously, they're 100% permanent and total. Okay. The vet comes in for increase in their service connected right hip condition. They submit the claim form. They even submit an operative report saying, hey, I've had a hip replacement. Okay. The VA gets it. They look at it. Yep. There's an operative report for right hip replacement. They grant the benefit. Okay. Easy said and done. Quick, right? Then years later, the veteran comes in for service connection for left hip, secondary to the right hip. Okay. Now, keep in mind, the veteran is service connected for a right hip replacement. Comes in left hip, secondary to the right hip. Okay. Goes to the C&P exam. Now, when you are claiming something like a bilateral condition, left, right lower extremity, sciatic nerve, femoral nerve, right and left knee, right and left ankle, right and left shoulder. When you go to that CMP exam, they have to evaluate that other joint that you are not claiming or doing anything with. So again, in this instance, the veteran comes in, left hip, secondary to the right hip. Nothing to do with the right hip, right? So the veteran goes to the exam, and the examiner says, yep, the left hip is secondary to the veteran's service-connected right hip condition, which they filed an increase years earlier for a hip replacement. Okay, keep that in mind. So now it comes back to the regional office, and the rater gets it. The rater sits down, goes through the exam. Yep. All the range of motion there. The doctor looked at the entire VA claims folder, measured the range of motion for both the right and hip using a goniometer. There's a section in each joint DBQ that asks, has the veteran had a replacement of their joint? So keep in mind, we're talking about the hips. And for the right hip, the examiner says no, that there's no hip replacement. For the left hip, the examiner says no left hip replacement. So I already know the vet didn't have a left hip replacement, didn't even claim it. But years earlier, the veteran came back in for an increase. Remember I said the veteran got service connected for right hip, come back in a few years later, claim increase for right hip replacement and submitted the operative report. But that examiner said that there was no right hip replacement. So now the rater's like, oh, wait a minute. Let me go back and look at the previous rating code sheet. Yep. There's the diagnostic code for the right hip replacement. Went from 10%, got the increase. Looks in the narrative section and the reason for decisions. Yep. But now the rater's thinking, wait a minute, before I send this back for an addendum to ask the examiner to clarify if the veteran had a right hip replacement, let me go look at that operative report. Remember I said they came in for the increase for the right hip. They submitted the operative report. The rater looks at the operative report. The vet didn't have a right hip replacement. Just had a hip scope. It wasn't a replacement. Now, the rating specialist has to do a proposal to sever that right hip replacement because the veteran never had a right hip replacement. Okay? I'm going to recap real quick. Veteran comes in, gets service connected for the right hip. Years later, comes back in for increase for right hip replacement, submits the operative report. The rater never looked or maybe missed it. It wasn't an operative report for right hip replacement, just a right hip scope. Okay? Now, this is an example when the rater went back and looked at something. Okay? Because remember I said it was bilateral. The veteran came in for the left hip, secondary to the right hip replacement. Now, when the rater went back and looked, the rating that was sent to the veteran stated, hey, we're paying you 100%, temporary 100%. You're going to get more money for X amount of months. The veteran knew in this scenario that they never had a hip replacement, and they didn't say anything to the VA and say, hey, wait a minute. You granted me a higher evaluation for the right hip. I didn't have a hip replacement. I had a right hip scope. Never said anything. Okay. So the veteran knew. Okay. But what he didn't know, they were going to look at their right hip when he came in for the left hip. Okay. Now that's a scenario, only one. There could be others, but that's just one where I could think where the adjudicator will go back and look at something. Now, an example when 99% of the time, they may not go back and look at something. The veteran, 100% permanent total, comes in, files a new claim for tinnitus, ringing in the ears. They check to see what his MOS, his or her MOS is, schedule a CMP exam. The CMP exam comes back, positive opinion, they grant the benefit. So if the veteran is service connected for, let's just say, PTSD, flat feet, lower back strain, what reason would they have to go back and look at all those conditions. Now, I'm not saying there's raters out there that may not do it. I'm pretty sure there's some. But don't think because you're 100% permanent total that they're going to go back and look through that whole entire claim file like I just showed you. Okay. It's possible. I gave you a scenario, but it is highly unlikely. Okay. I've seen veterans do it. I've adjudicated some claims and I didn't go back and look at the entire claims file because there was no reason to. All right. So if anybody else tells you otherwise, just ask them, say, hey, okay, what is the 38 CFR, the M21, or a court case that states that they have to? There isn't one. Okay. I haven't seen it. All right. And I've adjudicated hundreds of claims where, like I said earlier, where veterans came in that was 100% permanent total and didn't go back and look at it, anything. Okay. But there are some cases that they could, right? So let me know what you think. Leave me some comments in the comment section. In the meantime, make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification button, and don't forget to share this video with your fellow veterans. Thank you.